There's a lot of noise around the league right now, but quietly, Minnesota might be building one of the nastiest defenses we've seen from this team in years. And after what just happened during the draft, fans are starting to realize the Vikings may have found a player that nobody is talking about enough yet. The crazy part? If this works out the way the coaching staff believes it can, this dude could completely change the identity of the defense moving forward. So without further ado, let's get to the analysis. Click the like button and write in the comments. This season is ours, I believe. There is a growing feeling around the Minnesota Vikings right now that something major is beginning to take shape inside this defense, and it might not be getting enough national attention yet. While most of the headlines after the 2026 NFL Draft focused on quarterbacks, flashy receivers, and blockbuster first-round picks around the league, one name quietly started generating serious buzz inside league circles, and now even analysts at ESPN are beginning to recognize what the Vikings may have stolen late in the draft. And when you really break down everything that has been said about this player, everything Kevin O'Connell hinted at, and the way Brian Flores could deploy him, it becomes clear this is not just another developmental rookie. This could be the beginning of a completely new identity for the Vikings secondary. Field Yates recently highlighted Jacoby Thomas as one of his favorite Day 2 and Day 3 selections from the entire 2026 NFL Draft, and honestly, the more you look at the situation, the harder it becomes to disagree with him. The Vikings selected Thomas at pick number 98, and there's already a strong belief internally that Minnesota may have landed one of the biggest steals in the entire draft class. Not just because of his athletic profile, but because of the exact type of mentality he brings to Brian Flores' defense. At 6'2" and 200 pounds, Thomas already has the physical traits Flores loves at the safety position. But the real intrigue comes from the violence and versatility in his game. Last season alone, he produced 5 interceptions and 3.5 sacks, while becoming one of the most physical defensive backs in college football. That combination immediately stands out because the Vikings are entering a transition period in the secondary that could completely redefine the future of the defense. For over a decade, Minnesota had stability with Harrison Smith anchoring the back end. Vikings fans became accustomed to having one of the smartest, toughest, and most reliable safeties in football, controlling everything defensively. But now, with Harrison Smith's future still uncertain and the organization clearly preparing for the next era, the Vikings needed someone capable of bringing energy, intimidation, and flexibility into Flores' system. According to the discussion surrounding Thomas already, Minnesota may believe they found exactly that. What makes this especially fascinating is that even those evaluating Thomas admit they still do not fully know what his exact role will be yet. And strangely enough, that uncertainty may actually be the best possible sign for his future in this defense. Flores thrives on disguise, unpredictability, and moving pieces around the field constantly. Thomas appears built for that kind of football. There's already growing belief he could become one of those defenders who lines up everywhere, confuses quarterbacks before the snap, and gives Minnesota the kind of defensive flexibility that completely changes games. In fact, there's already an expectation that Thomas could immediately become a major contributor from Week 1. The projection being discussed is not some small rotational role either. There's legitimate belief he could be on the field for around 60% of the defensive snaps right away as a rookie, while also contributing heavily on special teams. That tells you everything about how Minnesota views him internally. Teams simply do not spend a top 100 pick on a safety unless they envision him becoming a major piece of the defense almost immediately. And here's where things start getting really interesting for Vikings fans. The discussion around Thomas is not just about production, it's about identity. Minnesota wants to become a more physical football team defensively, and as was pointed out during the conversation, Every front seven in the NFL already plays physical football. What separates elite defenses is how aggressive and intimidating the secondary becomes. That's where Thomas enters the picture. The comparisons beginning to surface are not small ones either. There's already mention of him potentially developing into a Cam Chancellor-type hitter if he fully grasps the mental side of Flores' defense. And that's the critical part of this entire story. Kevin O'Connell specifically referenced how excited Thomas became while studying tape involving Harrison Smith, quarterbacking the defense. According to O'Connell, the coaching staff saw another level of Thomas mentally during rookie minicamp, and they believe that if he masters the disguise responsibilities and communication elements required in this system, the ceiling becomes enormous. That is the exact phrase that should grab Vikings fans right now. The sky is the limit. Because physically, the tools are already obvious. The hitting ability is obvious. The production is obvious. The toughness is obvious. The remaining question is whether he can process the game at the speed Flores demands. If he can, Minnesota may have found the centerpiece of its next-generation secondary. And maybe the most shocking part of all this is how far he fell in the draft. Even now, there's a growing realization among analysts that Thomas was probably undervalued throughout the pre-draft process. This was a defender coming off a dominant season at Miami, recording 5 interceptions, 11 pass breakups, and 4 tackles for loss while helping lead the program all the way to the national championship game. Yet somehow, he still slipped outside the top 90 selections. The path he took to get here also says a lot about the type of player Minnesota is bringing into the building. Thomas worked his way up through multiple levels of college football, beginning at Middle Tennessee, earning an opportunity at Tennessee, and eventually reaching Miami, where he elevated his game on one of the biggest stages in the country. That kind of progression matters because it reveals competitiveness, adaptability, and hunger. Traits Flores absolutely loves in defensive players. And honestly, the possibility of the Vikings finally developing another tone-setting safety after Harrison Smith is enough to make this one of the most intriguing storylines entering training camp. Because if Thomas delivers on even part of this potential, Minnesota's defense could become significantly more dangerous than many people expect heading into 2026. Do you believe Jacoby Thomas can become the next great Vikings safety and eventually take over Harrison Smith's role in this defense? Let me know in the comments, because this might end up being the most important draft pick Minnesota made this year. Drop your predictions and reactions down in the comments right now, because I'll be reading through all of them. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another Vikings update, breaking news report, or exclusive analysis all season long. As always, SKOL Vikes.